The following disclaimer is for those in California only. Pursuant to California Assembly Bill 2571, it is illegal for the advertisement and or marketing of any firearm-related products and or programs in a manner that is designed, intended, or reasonably appears to be attractive to minors. As such, if you are currently in California, this program is restricted to only those that are over 18. Please turn this program off now if you are in California and under 18. Now, on to the program. Hello and welcome to the centertenspodcast. Center is a podcast that discusses small bore and precision air rifle from junior shooting sports on up to NCAA Collegiate and Olympic competition. And now here's your host, Adam Pearson. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Center Tens. The NCAA competitions are starting to wind down for the season. I have a couple more weeks left, but I do have some good news. As we reported last week, Georgia Southern athlete Bremen Butler had gone into the hospital, been in contact with her father. She's out of the hospital now. She's back with her team. She traveled this past weekend with them. She's got light duty, can't lift over a certain weight, but she is doing better, and we're everybody's glad to hear about that, and we wish her luck and continued recovery. So as we go ahead, we're going to go ahead and get started looking at the competitions from this past week. Everybody's glad to hear that Bremen is doing better. So the first match we're going to look at is Memphis and Ole Miss. Memphis topped that match with a 47-03 to Ole Miss's 46-96. Memphis shot a 23-34 small bore, 23-69 air to Ole Miss's 23-21 small bore, 23-75 air. Top shooters for the match. For Memphis, we had Gabriella Zeich with an 11-81. And for Ole Miss, we had Kristen Dirting with an 11-79. The scoring teams, Memphis' small bore team was Gabriella Zeich with a 590, Sophie Cruz with a 582. Then we had a pair of 581s from Angeline Henry and Jack Kersey. In air, Jack shot a 595, Sophie Cruz a 592. Then we had a pair of 591s from Gabriella Zeich and Angeline Henry. For Ole Miss, their small bore team, Kristen Dirting shot a 588. Leah Horvath, a 583, Emma Pereira, a 576, and Juliana Hayes, a 574. In air, Reagan Diamond shot a 595, Emma Pereira, a 594. Both Martina Gratz and Leah Horvath shot 593s. So the second match for the week, we had the VMI women's team traveling to Morehead State. Morehead topped that with a 46-72 to VMI Women's 44-20. Morehead shot a 23-22 small bore and a 23-50 air to VMI's 21-35 small bore, 22-85 air. The top shooters we had for Morehead State was Adriana Beard with an 11-70. And for the VMI women's team was Victoria Phillips with an 11-43. The scoring teams for Morehead State in small bore, Adriana Beard, she shot a 590. Bryce Ward shot a 583, Andrew Morris a 575, and Marina Koenig a 574. In air, Andrew Morris shot a 591, Adriana Beard a 589, Hayden Bell a 588, and Maria Koenig a 582. For the VMI women's team, their small bore team, Victoria Phillips shot a 570, Emma Cameron shot a 546, Adriana Sanders, a 528, and Smina Lokshwan, a 591. And in air, Adriana Sanders, a 577, Emma Cameron, a 574, Victoria Phillips, a 573, and Smina Lokshwan, a 561. We're going to move on to TCU, where UTEP traveled to Fort Worth to compete. TCU topped that with a 47-42 to UTEP's 45-69. TCU shot a 23-56 small bore, or 23-86 air to UTEP's 22-65 small bore, 23-04 air. The top shooters for TCU, we had Stephanie Grunso with an 11.93, and for UTEP, we had Roxanne Keel with an 11.59. The scoring teams for TCU small bore, we had Stephanie Grunso with a 597, Katie Zahn with a 591, Stephanie Allen a 587, and Nicole Hogan a 581. In air, Katie Zahn shot a 598, Jeannie Haverhill a 597, Stephanie Grunso a 596, and Stephanie Allen a 595. For UTEP, Roxanne Keel shot a 574 small bore, Paige Hildebrandt a 568, Isabel Brooks a 564, and Isabella Rios a 559. In air, Roxanne Keel shot a 585, Isabel Brooks a 579, Paige Hildebrandt a 575, and Isabella Rios a 565. Next, we had Ole Miss traveling to Akron. Akron topped that match with a 47.03 to Ole Miss's 46.99. Akron shot a 23.28 small bore, 23.75 air to Ole Miss's 23.23 small bore, 23.76 air. The top shooters, we had Gavin Perkowski with an 11.84 for Akron. And for Ole Miss, we had Katie Tedeschi with an 11.77. The scoring teams, Akron small bore was Gavin Perkowski with a 5.89, Rachel Engels a 5.82, Natalia Seek a 5.79, and Lex Kirk a 5.78. In air, Lex Kirk shot a 5.96, Gavin Perkowski a 5.95, Rachel Engels a 5.94, and Natalia Seek a 5.90. For Ole Miss, in small bore, we had a pair of 5.82s from Kirsten During and Katie Tedeschi. Then we had Emma Pereira with a 5.80 and Reagan Diamond with a 5.79. In air, Martina Gratz shot a 5.96, Leah Horvath a 5.95, Kristen Durding a 5.94, and Reagan Diamond a 5.91. The fifth match of the weekend was Kentucky traveling to West Virginia. West Virginia topped that with a 47.28 to Kentucky's 47.10. West Virginia shot a 23.41 small bore and 23.87 air to Kentucky's 23.30 small bore, 23.80 air. The top shooters for West Virginia, we had Matt Sanchez with an 11.84, and for Kentucky, we had Braden Pizer with an 11.79. The scoring teams, West Virginia small bore team was Molly McGinn with a 5.86, as well as Griffin Lake with a 5.86, Mallory Brown with a 5.85, and Gavin Barnick with a 5.84. In air, we had Gavin Barnick and Laurie Sierra with a 5.98, Molly McGinn with a 5.97, and Natalie Perrin with a 5.94. Kentucky's teams, Emmy Sellers shot a 5.85, Braden Pizer with a 5.84, Sophia Cicerello a 5.81, and Jaden Thompson a 5.80. In air, Allison Buessler shot a 5.98, Sophia Cicerello a 5.96, Braden Pizer a 5.95, and Emmy Sellers a 5.91. Next, we had Navy and Georgia Southern traveling to Charleston to compete at the Citadel. Navy topped that with a 47.27 aggregate. Georgia Southern came in second with a 47.14. And the Citadel women's team traveled with only three shooters, so they only had an aggregate of 27.01. Navy small bore had a 23.58 to a 23.69 air. Georgia Southern had a 23.36 small bore, 23.78 air. And Citadel had a 15.84 small bore and 11.17 air. The top shooters for Navy was Marley Duncan with an 11.85. For Georgia Southern, we had Emma Pullman with 11.84. And the Citadel women's team's top shooter was Megan Mix with an 11.58. The scoring teams for Navy, we had Marley Duncan with a 5.92 in small bore, Clarissa Leyland with a 5.91, Isabella Baldwin with a 5.88, and Stephanie Millavane with a 5.87. In air, Isabella Baldwin shot a 5.96, Marley Duncan a 5.93, as well as Clarissa Leyland with a 5.93, and Deontay Hayes with a 5.87. For Georgia Southern, in small bore, Emma Pullman shot a 5.87, Addie Burrow a 5.84, Ella Goldfaden a 5.83, and Zahara Gonzalez-Meza with a 5.82. Their air team was Emma Pullman with a 5.97, Addie Burrow with a 5.96, Zahara Gonzalez-Meza with a 594. And Bremen Butler returning with a 591. And then for the Citadel, in their small bore team, we had Megan Mix with a 576, Alex Maldonado with a 524, and Emma Goldman with a 484. So they only had 3 shooters in small bore, and they only had 2 shooters in air. You had Megan Mix with a 582, and Alex Maldonado with a 535. Then we had Murray State traveling to Memphis. Memphis topped that match with a 47-10 to Murray State's 46-97. Memphis shot a 23-31 small bore and a 23-79 air to Murray State's 23-30 small bore and 23-67 air. The top shooters for Memphis, we had a tie with Angeline Henry and Gabriela Zeg, both shooting at 11.79s. And for Murray State, we had Matthias Kiru with an 11.84. The scoring teams for Memphis, we had Kenley Uton shooting a 5.84 small bore. Then we had a pair of 5.83s from Angeline Henry and Gabriela Zeich. And we had a 5.81 from Jack Kiersey. In air, Gabriela Zeich and Angeline Henry both shot 5.96s. Jack Kiersey shot a 5.94. And Sophie Cruz a 5.93. For Murray State, Matthias Kiru shot a 5.89 small bore. Allison Henry a 5.83. Alok Horter with a 5.81. And Scott Patterson a 5.77. In air, Matthias Kiru shot a 5.95. Allison Henry a 5.94. Caroline Martin a 5.91. And Scott Patterson a 5.87. For the last match of Saturday, we've got Norwich and MIT. MIT's topped that match with a 43-67 to Norwich's 43-37. MIT shot a 21-27 small bore, 22-40 air to Norwich's 21-75 small bore, 21-62 air. The top shooters for MIT, we had Danny Antonelli with a 10.95. And for Norwich, we had Aiden Burris with an 11.20. The scoring teams for MIT small bore, we had Phoebe Zhu with a 5.37. Danny Antonelli with a 5.36. Rose Ollisman with a 5.32. And Spruce Campbell with a 5.22. In air, Angela Kim shot a 5.66. Danny Antonelli a 5.59. Rose Ollisman with a 5.58. And Phoebe Zhu with a 5.57. Norwich's scoring teams, we had Aiden Burris with a 5.65. Ben Kelly with a 5.55. Evan Elders a 5.34. And Jacob Cohen a 5.21. And in air, Aiden Burris shot a 5.55. Ben Kelly a 5.46. Evan Elders a 5.45. And Jasmine Mann a 5.16. So moving on to the matches for Sunday, we had the Navy at the Citadel. Navy shot a 47-10 to Citadel's 46-12. Navy fired a 23-54 small bore and a 23-56 air to the Citadel's 22-93 small bore, 23-19 air. Top shooters for Navy, we had Isabella Baldwin with an 11.81. And for the Citadel, we had James Hart IV with an 11.73. The scoring teams for Navy small bore, we had Isabella Baldwin with a 5.94. Marley Duncan with a 5.90. Stephanie Millavane with a 5.86. And Clarissa Leyland with a 5.84. And in air, Clarissa Leyland shot a 5.95. Marley Duncan a 5.88. Isabella Baldwin a 5.87. And Deontay Hayes a 5.86. For the Citadel, James Hart IV shot a 5.85 small bore. Charlotte Welsh a 5.79. Carson Wood a 5.70. And Dalton Bonight a 5.59. And in air, James Hart IV shot a 5.88. Charlotte Welsh a 5.86. Carson Wood a 5.73. And Dalton Bonight a 5.72. The second match for Sunday, we had Jacksonville State and Murray State both traveling, competing at Ole Miss. Murray State topped that match with a 47-27 to Jacksonville State's 46-82. Murray State shot a 23-47 small bore, 23-80 air to Jacksonville State's 23-08 small bore, 23-74 air. The top shooters for Murray State, we had Matthias Kiru with an 11.84. And for Jacksonville State, we had Franz Rasmussen with an 11.79. The scoring teams, Murray State small bore was Matthias Kiru with a 5.90. Then we had Alok Horter and Allison Henry both shooting 5.87s. And John Blanton shooting a 5.83. In air, Scott Patterson shot a 597. Caroline Martin, a 595. And then Allison Henry and Matthias Kiru both shooting 594s. For Jacksonville State, Franz Rasmussen shot a 582 small bore. Annie Ionati shot a 579. Sam Burrow, a 578. And Clark McWhorter, a 569. In air, Franz Rasmussen shot a 597. Annie Ionati, a 594. Sam Burrow, a 592. And Lars Lillinge, a 591. And the final match for the weekend, we had Ohio State traveling to MIT for the Bean Pot competition. That's a competition where whoever wins the match gets a bean pot that MIT has made for the championship. And for the second year in a row, Ohio State won. They topped the match with a 47.08 to MIT's 43.60. Ohio State shot a 23.32 small bore, 23.76 air to MIT's 21.37 small bore, 22.23 air. The top shooters for the match for this weekend, for Ohio State, we had Derek Kaiser with an 11.83. And for MIT, we had Rose Osman with a 10.97. The scoring teams, in small bore for Ohio State, we had Derek Kaiser with a 5.88. Victor Kiss, a 5.84. Paige Hollowell, a 5.82. And Lillian Warren, a 5.78. In air, we had Victor Kiss with a 5.97. Derek Kaiser, a 5.95. Lillian Warren, a 5.93. And Paige Hollowell, a 5.91. MIT, in small bore, we had Danny Antonelli with a 5.43. Rose Osman with a 5.36. Angela Kim, a 5.30. And Spruce Campbell, a 5.28. In air, Rose Osman shot a 5.61. Phoebe Zhu, a 5.60. Then we had a pair of 5.51s from Danny Antonelli and Angela Kim. So that was all the competition from this past weekend. And looking forward to next weekend, we have quite a few competitions on Saturday. We have Morehead State at Kentucky, John Jay at Navy. We have VMI at West Virginia, Akron and Nebraska at Ohio State. We have UT Martin at Murray State, Memphis at Ole Miss, North Georgia at Georgia Southern. We have MIT and Norwich at Army, TCU at Air Force, Alabama Birmingham at Jacksonville State, and UTEP at Alaska Fairbanks. And then we have one competition on Sunday. We have Wofford competing against Citadel. So, and then this is all leading up to I believe that this coming weekend is everybody's NCAA qualifiers. So that's why everybody's all shooting. So this will be their qualifying scores for NCAA. So that'll be it for this week. And again, best wishes go out to Bremen as she continues to recover. Everybody's glad to hear that she is doing well and recovering and was able to compete this past weekend. So we like to say every week, the most important shot is the one that is in front of you. Thank you for listening to Season 1 of Center Tens. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This helps out tremendously. Give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook at Center Tens. Center Tens can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Pocket Cast, and at centertens.com. Hope you join us for our next episode.